We've had people from Tennessee, Michigan, Ohio, obviously we're in Cincinnati, Indiana, and a whole lot of, some other states, not a whole lot of other states, come hang out with us. So come join, costs $3 and you get free pizza. Today we're going to be interviewing Alex Holt. Looking forward to our conversation. Alex, how you doing?
Good, you?
Doing well, doing really well. So a little bit about Alex. He's the owner of Buying Cincinnati Houses. He's done over 10 deals with no cash out of pocket. He's completed several land contracts that he was able to flip with little more than just his sweat equity. And he's based in Cincinnati, and he is the sharpest dresser, with especially boots. If you're in the front row, you know what I'm talking about. If you're on YouTube, watch it. If you're in the back row, come see his boots in a little bit. Alex, with that being said, you want to give the best ever listeners and everyone hanging out a little bit about your background and your focus.
So, like Joe said, my name's Alex Holt. I've been coming to the meetup since pretty much the beginning. I started, just with just an idea of wanting to get into real estate with little to no money. So, this group really helped me to be able. This group really helped me to be able to, meet different people who, if you can bring the sweat equity and they can bring the finance. So that kind of jump started me to start learning more like seller financing and how to, kind of talking to people and things like that. So I started flipping, started doing some of the construction work myself, which helped, and I also had a landscape business going. So that kind of put me in position to meet a lot of investors and flippers in the beginning. So that same sweat equity we took inside.
Out of pocket. Mm-hmm. Yep. So 10 deals, no cash out of pocket. Yeah. Let's talk about the first deal. Mm-hmm. How was it structured? How did you do no cash out of pocket?
The very first deal I did was on the west side of Cincinnati. It was a land contract. I needed $3,500 down. They needed landscaping at some of their other properties. I traded doing the complete landscape job, everything at 2 different places for and then payments, and we were doing other landscape. Like, ended up going south because it was too big, and I didn't have enough experience in the beginning for that big. But helped get my labor for doing the landscape. So but we were able to sell it to.
Learn more.
Purchase price was $17,500. Get that for the landscaping, and then the monthly payments were like $300.
Okay, so you traded your landscaping services for the $3,500, and then you had $300 a month thereafter.
Yep.
And so then what happened?
And so after that, we started doing the renovations, and we learned that it was a lot more than we thought it would need. And at that point, I had, like I said, little to no cash. So it was like just making the monthly payments, the months, like the winter months when we weren't cutting the grass and doing things for them. It was kind of putting a strain on me. So we ended up putting maybe $4,000 or $5,000 out of pocket into it. And I think we ended up later selling it for like 23, 24. So like I said, we barely breaking even. We literally barely broke even. But it was so much experience from that one that it just kind of was like, I thought I knew it all until. Yeah, first ever. Yeah.
Number two.
Number two is the one that I believe it's the one I wrote into with Osh. It gets a little fuzzy once you start going, but that's the one I wrote into with Osh, which is a member of the group who I kind of was telling you earlier about. I partnered with somebody with having more of the cash, and I had more of the sweat equity. So that one we purchased at $9,000. We ended up putting about $22,000 in renovations. That house was literally $9,000. The rental, it was never meant to be a flip, so day. That one was a nightmare.
Well, I think it would be good. So I've read the article.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe others haven't.
Okay.
So what are the highlights of what happened there?
Pretty much, like I said, so the highlight, well, the low light, what ended up happening is contractors, for one, I learned my fair share of, the do's and don'ts of contractors, trusting, oh, I'll get this done, I still need paid this week type of thing. Got into 2-3 weeks behind that, so I got over on labor, and then we got into some electrical issues, we got into framing issues, we got into roofing issues, gutters, I mean, you name it, we got into it. So pretty much to wrap this deal up, we were supposed to close on it. I mean, it was like a 3-month flip. It ended up being a year. So basically, to keep my word with Osh, because at this point I knew we wouldn't make any money. I mean, we lost. So it meant more to me to be able to keep my integrity with this person for lending me the deal on a handshake, pretty much. We had no paperwork, anything, just here goes the money, let me know when it sells type of thing. So that meant so much to me, so it ended up coming a time where our property was 6 inches onto the other person's lot, which this was a vacant property in the middle of Price Hill, so it was not worth a lot of money. So to get this deal done, I had to drive in the middle of the night. I say about 11 o'clock at night. I had to go all the way to Columbus in the rough part of town to meet the seller of that lot to do a, I forgot what it was called at this point, but pretty much a transaction to go on to access to be an easement. We had to get an easement, so I had to pay him $1,400 cash to get him to sign a piece of paper that he was about to lose the lot anyway. But our lawyer said it would have took us longer in court to beat it and take it because we were granted it because the house had been there since the early 1800s. So legally we got it, but anyway, make a long story short, I don't want to ramble about it. That one ended up being a nightmare. I think we ended up selling it for, and luckily we had good buyers. So they really wanted the property. So while all this is going on, they're still under contract. They're like, just do whatever you got to do. I know, so that was like amazing, like, because most buyers would walk away. They're like, no, we really, we'll finish the place, we'll blah, blah, blah. So they were very patient. So we ended up selling, I think, for $37,000. So like I said, purchase price was $9,000. I don't know the numbers offhand, but we didn't make money. I think we might have, by the time closing costs and everything, we lost like $8,000. So me and Ash ended up splitting that money, and he had another project where we helped with one of his commercial buildings to eat the other $4,000 in costs that my company came in and did for free to kind of square up.
The landscaping.
No, we did some inside work for him.
Okay.
At his big salon parlor, they redid the floors, and so we came in and did that for like 4 or 5 days.
Mm-hmm.
So
got it.
yeah, it's a lot.
So on the electrical,
Yeah.
the roofing, the gutters, what are some specific things that if you were to come across a deal like that in the future that you look out for?
Specifically on each item, I would have took a bit more time to investigate. For one, why the purchase price was so low. The buyer was actually incarcerated, so we had to deal with his wife, and I kind of got wrapped up in the sob story in the sense of I really need the money versus looking at just the house. What you always just look at the house, you help people later, and I hate to say it like that, but you kind of have to or you'll be out of business. So I would have took more time during the inspection period. I don't know if I would have said I would have hired an inspector because I kind of knew to a degree what I was getting into, but not like the full whammy. So I would have took a lot more time in each thing and did a lot more line items. I would have been a lot more on my contractors instead of trusting them, because I got him from a referral. So I'm like, oh, he's a pretty good guy. He's going through things because I run a business, so I know how it is. But that stuff just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So
that was deal number 2, though.
Yeah,
but you've done 10.
Yeah.
So recovered.
Yeah.
Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Tell us a story. Tell us a deal that has gone well.
The best deal I did literally was no money out of pocket. This one, I got under a land contract. I got a lender to lend me land contract and pay for the purchase, the closing, everything except the rehab. So it was a duplex in the Hartwell area. It's a duplex. So I had a tenant downstairs who came from the owner. The owner just pretty much needed to get out of the house. Purchase price was, I think, maybe 38,000. Yeah, 38,000. Originally it was 42,000. She came back, her own self negotiated, hey, just give me 38. So I went to somebody, I said, look, if I pay you $300 extra a month for 3 years, will you let me have this place? No money down. He said, yeah, just put it in my company name, and if you'll make the payments, I will. So I literally put no money down, just traded. So the duplex downstairs, I had a tenant in there. I think she was paying maybe $750. It was a 2-1, so she was paying like $750 a month. Upstairs is the place that needed work. Downstairs was pretty nice, up to date. Upstairs, so needed a lot of work. So in the evening times, I would go over, put some sweat equity in. I say I might have put maybe $5,000, of like material. So it was nowhere near finished. And at that point, I had to kick the tenant out downstairs because she was no longer making her payment. So now I was back in the hole where I was starting to be financially obligated for, paying the principal plus his interest. So at this point, I'm like, I'll move downstairs. That way I can work upstairs more at night. So I did that for like 2 months. And at that point, I'm like, man, I'm going to be here a long time. And it's a lot of work. But the upside of it, because on literally where it was touching Wyoming. So I started to look, and I knew that when I bought it. So I'm like, let's just think about, the upside of this. So I called my realtor. I'm like, what you think we could get? We pulled comps. I didn't believe it. She was like, I would put it up for 75, 80,000 and see what happened. We put it up. I mean, it went pending in like a day or two. It was not full price. It might have been like 72,000. He pretty much was doing the same thing I did. They wanted to live downstairs, work upstairs. I say the ARV on it was probably 140, 160 something in between there. Like I said, I might have put $5,000 outside of paying the interest on it, monthly payments, but I put no money down to purchase it. I think I ended up walking away with like 34,000. Yeah, so
that's a big win.
Yeah, that was like that sob moment of like, okay, real estate can be good. Because before that, it was like, what am I doing? I'm trading all my hours. I'm already working. I had a little son, so it's like, man, is this worth it? Yeah. I was literally at my breaking point at that point. And that house was the one for me. I'm like, okay, it's worth it.
What number is that? You've done about 10.
Yeah, that was maybe number 4. That was maybe number 4 or 5. That was like last year. And when I said 10, also a few of them were wholesales that I might have did light touch-ups. I've kind of got into like the paint patch thing, kind of get out the way to kind of not, go in and rebuild the whole house. I kind of learned that that's not my strength. I'm there too long, I get frustrated. I'm a landscaper first, so we're usually in and out of a job in a couple of days. So I started to think, when I'm here all this time, I'm getting frustrated, my guys are frustrated, so it's like, that's not our thing. We need to kind of narrow our focus and find ones that don't need as much work.
And for people who are listening who are not from Cincinnati, Wyoming is a part of Cincinnati. We're not talking about the state of Wyoming. So your partnership with Osh, who's a really good friend of mine as well, a great guy, and that was on deal number 2, right?
No, Osh was not a part of that deal.
What deal was Osh a part of?
That was the one that we lost money,
right.
The one in price of the second deal.
That's what I meant.
Yes.
So deal number 2 was when you had the partnership.
Exactly, yep.
How do you just lost money on that. Let's go back in time. You just lost money, and you have to break the news to someone, an investor,
right,
a business partner,
right.
What do? You
have that sleepless night type of how to present this. Is not going to be good news no matter what. So at that point, I just kind of looked at it like head first. I thought at that point, what would I want if I was him? Honesty, because I can't make a miracle happen. I worked my butt off. I kicked the contractor out, taught myself how to pretty much finish the house, and I was not a contractor at that point. All because, he trusted in me so much to give me his word. So I'm like, no matter what, I'll do whatever. And that came out to when I had to drive 2 hours one way to meet a knucklehead pretty much in a sense. Seriously, I mean, we had to meet at a half-lit gas station, and I'm like, it doesn't matter at this point because that was the only thing holding clothes up. So, I'm like, whatever I got to do at this point because that meant that much to me to like, yeah, I'm gonna still lose some money here, but I synced in me and we had conversations. It brought me and him a lot closer as far as friends and mentorship. Just that, you know, at this point, I think he pretty much understands the character. Like, he'll get it done even if he will lose money, but I'll make him money later.
So you're doing a lot of lease options.
Yeah, in a sense.
In a sense. How are you finding deals where the seller, so to speak, is willing to do that?
I guess going in, I don't mind if they're ugly in a sense, and what I mean by that is the one in Wyoming, close to Wyoming, was literally the ugliest house on the street. So it was that saying, ugly house in a good neighborhood type of thing. So I don't mind finding the ones that everybody's like, what can you do with that one? You know, that one, not saying that it's condemned and fallen in, but saying that it has no life to it. It has no curb appeal. With being a landscaper, I've been able to have an eye like, you know, I can see a yard finished. So I started to do the same thing inside. You know, I won't take a job, and I learned this from the company, I won't take a job I can't see finished. So if I come to a house and I can't see it done, then I can't tell the customer what needs to be done. So at that point, I've kind of kept that same motto with the houses. If I can't see it finished or see what I want to do from either the first or second walkthrough, then I'll walk away. And so I kind of use that same motto with going to sellers and finding them either in a predicament where they're like, I'm done with it, I want nothing else to do with it, just take it, in a sense, not for free, but you know, take what I have left old, so that type of.
How did you find that particular house?
My realtor, she's a rock star, Cheryl Huff. I mean, she literally, she hits the boots on the ground for me. She's like, Alex, I have a lady, I know you like these, come look at it. So I took my first investor before even going to see it. She's like, I'm not lending on this. This thing is too big, it's too massive. She was right, it was too big, too massive. The purchase price was excellent. Right, so she just. The structure was too big, too massive? Yes, it literally was maybe a 3,500 square foot house.
Okay.
3-4 floors, it was huge. But it had good plumbing, I mean, it had brand new plumbing, it had 2 new furnaces, it had all new electrical other than the rough end in the last part. So I knew that, and I knew that was the bulk of the money. And the lady had showed me all the receipts. She spent like 35 grand just in the basement. And so I knew all the mechanicals were good, it was just ugly. So at that point, I'm like, it's a win-win. I have a tenant upstairs. You know, she was not a great tenant by any means, but at that point, it was a tenant, and that was my first time being a landlord. So that took on that. But
with your landscaping company, how active, has that led to any deals?
The first deal, because I was able to trade off, and they knew that, so they kind of presented that to me. But as far as lately, no, it leads to me triggering knowing when a house is empty a lot quicker, you know, not just if the grass isn't cut, but yeah, they may have a lawn service, but if the weeds are as tall as the grass would have been, somebody's probably not living there. So I'll look for things like that when I start doing mailers instead of just blasting mailing, because that gets expensive. So I'll do little triggers like that to start, you know, seeing like certain bushes and plants should have been trimmed. If a lot of people live there, then usually, you know, or they may not care about the landscape, but it could give you an indication that, you know, this could be a potential property that you can take over.
What's the last deal you did?
Closed or deal I'm doing now?
Closed.
Last deal closed. I did one, it would end up being a wholesale. I did 2 at the same time. I did one I was actually gonna flip, ended up being that concept where it was a great house in Mount Healthy, locked it up. Had intentions, had money, everything, contractors lined up. I couldn't see it finish. So I went back to myself and I pitched it out to one person, told him my purchase price, take it or leave it. He took it. I had another one in Dayton, same thing. I didn't want to drive to Dayton. It wasn't that I couldn't see it finish, I didn't want to drive to Dayton. He took both of them in a package deal, so it ended up, we closed 1 week, the next week, so that was probably like a month ago, but currently I'm in some now.
And do you remember the numbers on both those wholesale deals?
Yeah, the one in Mount Healthy, I can't remember what I had it locked up at. It might have been 52 to 54, resold for like 52,000, 52,000, and sold for maybe 64, 65. So I made like 9 or 10
Wow.
somewhere between.
On one of them?
Yeah, on one of them.
And then
Yeah,
the
and then the
other-
other one was in Dayton. I ended up actually locking it up on a land contract. So that one was a little different. It was structured because I was going to keep it as a rental. So that one I ended up purchasing. I didn't pay cash for it, but I was paying monthly payments. That one ended up being $7,500, and I resold it for $15,500.
Wow.
So,
And how did you find each of those two?
how did I find? Oh, the one I found off of a car dealership. I went to a car dealership, the one in Dayton. The lady that was doing the paperwork was like, "Oh, you buy houses?" Yeah. She's like, "My neighbors looking, they just want to get rid of it." Older couple up in the Sailor Park part of Dayton, which is a rougher part, but it's a very good, it's an older community. So it's an older, rougher area, but it's a good, still has the bones of the community type of thing. So I went to look at it, I'm like, it only needs $3,000-$4,000 worth of work to get $550 a month. So I'm like, I had it locked up to pay $325 a month, you know. So I'm like, I'll take it. And then he already has some in Dayton, so it made sense for him to put it to his rent portfolio. So I literally found that one buying a truck. she was selling, you know, she was a loan officer basically. And so just networking, just always talking to people.
What about the other one?
The other one was a Facebook deal. It was one of those, you had to be right on it. I think me and Eric Cotner might have both been on that one. I see him in the back. That one was one of them, a buddy of mine. I paid people, I don't pay him, but like a buddy of mine from landscaping, I knew he was kind of needing some money, so I'll send him what I can. And you know, sometimes he has kids and things like that, and he's always on Facebook. And I'm like, you see deals, tag me in it. You know, if I get it, I'll shoot you some money. So he tagged me in it. I was literally 5 minutes away. I got the lockbox. I walked in. I sent him the contract while I was there. I knew that one was going to fly. So I had to have it. I was not leaving without that house. So, you know, I locked that one up while I was there. So, but yeah, it would have been gone. I mean, if Eric would have got to it, if anybody else would have got to it, it was gone. So that was literally like, stop what you're doing. You know, my 4-year-old's in the back. I'm like, give me 5 minutes, you get ice cream when we're done. So I had to get that one. So.
Oh wow, Eric's trouble for many reasons.
Trust me.
So, taking a step back,
Yeah.
ask this question to everyone: what's your best real estate investing advice ever?
Mine personally is, if you're doing the work or if you need contractors, be able to see the job to completion. Don't just buy it to buy it, have an end game. Be more worried about how you're going to exit. Do you have more than one strategy to exit? If the market collapses, what are you going to do? Have more than one option with real estate, because it usually never goes as planned. None of the deals out of the 10 have ever really went as planned. Even the one that I made good money on, I didn't think that I would have made it like that. I thought that I would have finished the house to see those funds. So always buy something with a lot of options. You know, the more options, the better, would be my advice.
We're gonna do a lightning round. You ready for the best ever lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. First, a quick word for our best ever partners. All right, best ever book you recently read.
Hasn't been recently, but Rich Dad Poor Dad.
What's the most challenging aspect of a deal that you've done that we haven't talked about already?
Must have been, one we didn't talk about. Long day, sorry. Let's come back to that.
Okay. What's the best ever deal you've done that we haven't talked about?
Best ever deal we haven't done that I didn't talk about. One I just locked up right now. We're selling it this week. Intentions on purchasing it for 19. I was gonna rent it out, not gonna touch it. Made 11,250.
Wow. What's a mistake on a transaction that you made?
Contract. I need to, I sent in, well, I'm not gonna go into that, but I sent in the wrong purchase price of a contract and it could have went south really quick, but luckily my aunt owns a title company, so we called it and saved me. I left out a zero, put it like that. Nobody,
Zeros don't mean anything,
just
right?
a zero. Instead of 35,000, it was 3,500. So, big difference.
And that was a replacement for the other question, so I just rephrased this here.
Okay.
Best ever way you like to give back?
What I've found is It hasn't been monetary yet, but what I found is a lot of people reach out to me to try and learn how to get started, what to do, kind of being in a space where you don't know what to do. I don't have a lot of time right now because I'm running both businesses, but what I have done is I've tried to, mentorship as many people as I can as far as talking, answering the phone, whatever I can do to help them or even motivate them, like you can do it. Because I know when I was ready to quit, I didn't have a lot of people like, keep going, it'll be better, because everybody I knew kind of had either money or something like that, and I didn't have that. So I knew it had to be somebody like me who didn't have any money but would trade time for money. So those are kind of been the people that I've been kind of helping push. Like if you're willing to work hard, you could get there. The money is usually the easier part.
How do you work on your personal development to keep that mindset so strong?
Just staying grounded, just really staying grounded and really remembering being, just looking and just like, man, I want to get started, and, just remembering what it's like, to not have a deal, to not even, like my humble beginning started with goes all the way back to landscaping. I started out the trunk of my Honda when I graduated high school, so I've always learned how to not give up when everybody laughed at me, like, oh, he's, riding around there playing basketball, and I'm riding around in the Honda that smells like gas. So it's been, it's those things that you remember what it feels like to be working all day, and you want to be playing with your friends, but you're like, no, this is for a greater purpose. And I'm nowhere near the goals that I have set for myself. So I think, some people look at some success, but my success, is a lot further, I hope.
And how can the best ever listeners get in touch with you?
Right now, Facebook, Alex Holt. I can give out email or personal contact information as well. And I have 2 websites being worked on. One is buyingcincinnatihouses.com, which will be finished within the next month. And then the other one is the landscape company, lawncarebydesign.com.
Well, thank you for being on the show. We'll do Q&A here in a little bit, but really grateful to hear your story, the wins and the lessons learned for the deals that didn't go according to plan. Well, none of them went according to plan, but some made money, some didn't make money. Your story, I love the thought process of if you can't visualize the outcome, and you were using in the context of landscape,
Right.
then you went broader with the deal, then don't do it, because we've got to have multiple exit strategies.
Right.
And you're the first person out of 1,600 people I've interviewed that have found the deal via car dealership. So thanks for being on the show, and we'll go ahead and open it up to Q&A.
Hey Alex, I also actually drove around Honda today that smells like gas. Yeah, you're not alone. But actually, I had a question for you. It sounded like through one of the deals you were doing, you were kind of forced into learning some DIY skills you weren't necessarily intending to.
Yeah.
From the position you're at now, it sounds like you still do that some DIY to some extent. What are the DIY skills that you think offered the best cost savings?
That's a good question. On this last flip, or current one, we haven't sold it yet, tile. I don't know if everybody knows, but it's hard to find a good tile guy and a good plumber. I won't touch plumbing, but tile, I lay pavers. We built patios, walls. I'm like, it can't be that hard. So, I can't find a good tile guy. So we taught ourselves how to tile. It's not the best job. I'm not that happy with it as far as the, seeing lines and things like that. But now we have the aesthetics, so we just tiled another one today. So now it's like the repetition of that is saying, okay, we can get this down pretty quickly. So I would say for me, tile, but don't be afraid to, get your hands dirty, but also things that are less time consuming. Reframing. Framing may take a little while. Drywall would be a good example. Drywall takes a while. I would leave that to a professional, because if you're not good at the scores and everything at the end, you'll see it, and then the paint will. So drywall would be one I stay away from. Tile would be something that wouldn't take you too long, but you can save a good amount of money, in my opinion.
So when in a partnership, when you're bringing the deal and you're bringing the hustle, and you're looking to bring on a partner to fund the deal for you, how do you structure that partnership? What kind of terms do you get?
Recently, like with Osh, it was kind of grandfathered in. It was a 50-50 partnership. He brought all capital, I brought sweat equity, had no financing to the table. Going forward, I won't do more 50-50s. It's too much time And with everything I've learned now, it's kind of getting to a point where I can, structure them better. So I'm open to talk to people, about different avenues. But in the beginning, it was like split partnerships. But once you kind of get over that curve, it's like, this is way too funny. But, always, I really do like to work with personal investors versus going through the banks. It just takes forever. And then real estate's quick, that you got to be able to lock it up and do your thing,
Yeah, so usually when you talk to homeowners, they usually want the money up front, right? How do you go about showing someone that a land contract is a better option for them?
Will you repeat the question?
Yeah, so you pretty much asked me, when purchasing a property, the homeowners usually want the cash or the money up front versus how do you talk them around to doing a land contract?
Exactly.
So pretty much what I've learned is by the time they usually don't accept the land contract at first, because everybody will take a big pile of cash. Most people will take a big pile of cash to get away from this house. But once they, I say, hey, I understand. Put it to the market, do what you need to do. Now the market is changing a little bit, so a lot of these deals were a little before, but market is changing a little bit where people are buying just about anything that goes up. But I guess the best advice I could say is stay in contact with them. Like, hey, I know you wouldn't take that before, Ms. Johnson, but what if I make the terms a little better? Is that roof still leaking? Just things like that. Don't be a pest, but get to a point where it's like, look, I'm not going away till it sells. You're going to have to be persistent because it's probably not going to be, their best thing. Because it's usually like the last option for them, but it's the best option in my opinion for me. It doesn't put you in a great position, like legally, mortgage-wise and things like that, because second position or whatever, but.
Cool, thank you.
On that deal you just had to have, you said you got the lockbox real quick. Are you a realtor?
No, that one wasn't on the MLS.
Oh.
Most deals I've found, other than the one that made the most money, was not. Most of them are off market because, like I said, right now with the real estate, I don't even look on the MLS unless my realtors calls me with something. So yeah, because it's just so rough. I mean, you can be there and have the money and that still won't close the deal. Actually, behind us is a perfect example of one. It was one on whatever the street is that's adjacent to us. It was one I tried to lock up and couldn't because it was a bidding war and I had the money in. So, and they made good money on that one. It was like for 40 and they sold it for like 120, 130. And I was there, the first one. So that's when I'm like, the MLS has got to be better than this.
You mentioned you have goals that you're shooting for this year.
Yeah.
What are those goals and how would you calculate them or come up with them?
Yeah, so the question was, I have goals that I'm shooting for this year. How do I calculate to figure out pretty much where I want to get with those, right? So what I've done is I need to really take more time and slow down to write them out, but I constantly have a goal in mind. So my goals literally is I'll look back and say last year was a pretty good year. I think if I put in more systems, I can do double what I did with systems, meaning if I can take me out the equation and either duplicate what I do with my landscape company and get me out of there, I can focus solely on houses. So some of my goals specifically for houses this year was to do anywhere from 5 to 10 good wholesale deals. I don't want to just do any wholesale deals, but good wholesale deals. And then at least get 2 land contracts to keep for rentals, and then if I can do 6 flips, I'll be happy. So
We'll do one more question. We good? One last question.
You said you had this Posh guy help with investing. How did you approach him to ask for funds to help fund the purchase? And did you ever rapport with him before that?
Yeah, so the question was about Ash, which is a local investor in this group. How did I have a rapport with him to get him pretty much to lend? I'm trying to think back how that one even, that one actually started off of a landscape deal. So I did have one off a landscape deal. Ash needed landscaping at his house. He has a nice sized house, he needed a lot of work done. We came in, we did that, and while I'm there, he came out, we're drinking a beer after the job is done. I'm like, Ash, I got this one in Price Hill. I'm like, it's cheap, what you think? He like, how much? I'm like, $9K, he chugged it back, he like, forget it, let's do it. Like, literally, he like, let's do it, and then just wrote me a check in or whatever. And so literally, I mean, that's, you know, that just, people know him, that's kind of how he is. So, so that one was not a lot of rapport, but from that, but yeah, so that one was pretty cool.
Thank you. All right, we need, let's see,